It's Christmas time again from a couple of decades ago.
That's
From
right.
Keith Harden, who's live on Live and Local here today. And you've started to do some writing. I was poking around your website yesterday, and you've got some really interesting articles, and some of them pretty long articles, about, I gather they're at least somewhat autobiographical, seem to have all been written this year as well.
Yeah,
Is this a new thing for you?
as a matter of fact, I started transferring some stuff that I had up in the attic. I had stuff that I had written in these old notebooks for years and years, just bits of stuff. And something about the iPad made me just put it all together. And I started writing. I'm working on two books. One's kind of a memoir talking about all the years of music in the old days in Champaign-Urbana and since then, and talking about blues and talking about how I got started in music and all my wild and woolly days back in the bar scene in the old days of substance abuse and all kinds of things.
Surely not.
and then I also am working on kind of a sort of a sci-fi futuristic thing, not your little brother's sci-fi with robots and aliens and all that stuff, but just sort of like what might happen 50 years from now if everything crashes. One of those kind of things.
Is this sci-fi with singer-songwriters in it, or?
Yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, it does. It has singers, songwriters, and Native Americans, and all kinds of other things in it. And so yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do anything with all these things, but I have posted some of these things on my website. The things about blues, and then one thing's kind of a light fantasy thing that I wrote. It's kind of Alice in Wonderland meets the Bluegrass Underground, which I'm not sure if you know about the Bluegrass Underground. It's a venue down in Tennessee where they have a cave, and they actually do concerts down in the cave. And it's really awesome.
An actual cave?
An actual cave.
That they've fixed up, or they've just left as a cave?
They've left it as a cave, but they put a stage in there, and there's seating and lighting and everything, and it's called Bluegrass Underground. It's on PBS or NPT, which is the Nashville Public Television.
Is that a place you've had a chance to play yet? Or
no, I haven't had a chance to play there. No, it's mostly people who are really, really well known in the bluegrass world. Like last week, it was Jerry Douglas, who's the guy who plays with Alison Krauss. He's probably the best dobro player in the world, I would imagine. But anyway.
Well, I see you've pulled the iPad onto your lap.
Yes, I pulled it on here.
Are we going to have a reading?
If you don't mind, a couple of paragraphs.
Sure.
Okay.
What's this one from?
I'll set this one up. It's called Talkin' Blues. It's sort of my thoughts on blues and stuff like that. And I go on through this article and talk about my experiences of the blues. And there's pictures and everything. But anyway, let me get my readers on. Now that I'm so old, I need my readers. This is talking about how the blues were better in the old days to me. That's partly an old guy talking and partly just things. It's like there's an old saying that goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And it's true for some things. Yes, the sun always comes up in the morning and the sun always goes down at night. And yes, when an apple falls from a tree, it hits the ground. And for the foreseeable future, these things will stay the same. But there will never be another Charlie Patton or another Son House, never another Mississippi John Hurt or Robert Johnson, never another Bessie Smith or Memphis Minnie. There won't be another Coco Taylor or Muddy Wallers or Howlin' Wolf, and the list goes on and on. Fortunately, we still have a few like B.B. King, Robert Belfour, Corey Harris, Keb Mo, Guy Davis, Alvin Youngblood Hart, but I'd say B.B. is the only one who's an actual historical legend among the living. He goes, I know this sounds like nostalgia but for my money, the writers, artists, blues men, blues women, back around 90 or 100 years ago, had a different, deeper gravitas. There's something about the legends that we're talking about that wasn't only musicians and singers. We had Thomas Edison, we had Albert Einstein and the Wright brothers, we had Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali. Before that, we had Vincent van Gogh, but all of those guys are now long gone. We do have some good living writers like Jim Harrison, Cormac McCarthy, Don DeLillo, Thomas Pynchon, Tom Robbins, and some even newer recruits like Jonathan Franzen, David Eggers, Wells Tower, John Jeremiah Sullivan, and until 2008 we had Champaign-Urbana's David Foster Wallace. But there will never be another Mark Twain or Ernest Hemingway or F. Scott Fitzgerald or William Faulkner. You get the idea. These greats of a century ago are gone and unreplaceable, irrevocable change. So it's partly about that, thinking about how those great areas are just gone. And then I go on and, talk a lot more about my own experiences and going back and seeing their grave sites and just my thoughts when I was there, and then the gigs that I would do in those areas and just the vibe of Mississippi and going down there and the feeling like it's a foreign country if you're from the north. And anyway, 20 pages of that stuff.
Do you have a section maybe you could read that is describes some of your impressions in one of those places?
Yeah.
If you can find easily.
Yeah, sure. Okay. This is a few years ago when I first wanted to go on the Blues Trail. Now it's a well-documented place. Like there's markers down in Mississippi and all those places. Here we go. I wanted to find Robert Johnson's gravestone, so we searched in and around some little towns in the upper part of the Delta. The official Mississippi Blues Trail had been conceived, but our mimeographed copy of the proposed map of the trail wasn't very good, and there were no trail markers yet. Now the state of Mississippi promotes the trail and has quite a few historical markers up. We stopped at some little gas stations and small-town grocery stores, and even some of the folks who lived in the area didn't know about the Blues Trail, so it was easy to get lost out there. At the gas station convenience store that we stopped at, it looked like an old-fashioned general store, and I asked a couple of kids who were about 15 or 16 years old where Robert Johnson was buried, and they'd never even heard of him, and that sort of blew my mind. One of the most famous bluesmen of all time was buried within 10 miles of that little general store, and nobody had told him about it. It's right outside of Itta-Bena, Mississippi. We found 2 different gravestones for Robert Johnson near a little church, and I took pictures of my Resonator dobro guitar leaned up against the monument that was dedicated to him. I'm not sure if it was bad luck or bad luck. We stopped in Clarksdale, Mississippi for the Sunflower River Blues and Gospel Festival and heard some of the most raw, authentic Delta blues I'd ever heard, and I had opened for Muddy Waters.
That would have to be a meaning-packed, a pretty powerful tour, I think, for somebody who's been as steeped in the blues as you have. Compels me to ask, did you bring a blues along today?
Yes, I did bring of course I brought a blues along.
We're talking with Keith Harton here on Live and Local. He's in town for his annual series of Christmas time gigs.
Santa Claus is back in town. Doing kind of Robert Johnson style. Well, it's Christmas time, baby, and the snow's on the ground. Well, now it's Christmas time, baby, and the snow's on the ground. You be a real good little girl. Santa Claus is back in town. All right now. Got no sleigh with reindeer. Got no sack on my back. Santa Claus is coming in a big black Cadillac. I said it's Christmas time, baby, and the snow's on the ground. You be a real good little girl. Santa Claus is back in town. Put on your fishnet stockings, turn off the Christmas tree lights. Santa Claus is coming down your chimney tonight. I said it's Christmas time, baby, and the snow's on the ground. You be a real good little girl. Santa Claus is back in town. Santa's coming now.
You have one of the articles that's up on your website that you wrote. It's called Symposium in Blues, and you have a little quote that leads off from Muddy Waters. When you play the blues, play like an old man. Take your time. I wonder what there was about that sentiment that made you put that in front of this particular article, which people are certainly welcome to read on your website, and how you think of it when you create blues yourself, when you still do those.
Well, I had the good fortune, because I was kind of the easy to get on the stage and easy to get off the stage real quick guy with an acoustic guitar, to open up for all kinds of those blues guys back in the day here. And I opened up for Muddy Waters. And I had, been like a lot of young guitar players, tried to be the fastest gun in the West, doing all the, all the Hendrixy kind of, trying to be the top dog. And that was what people did. They'd try to cut heads, is what they called it, the jazzers. I'm going to go cut heads tonight. But then when I saw Muddy live, just up that close, he just really took his time, and he just played real slow and real mesmerizing blues, and it just was earth-shattering to watch him play it. You just felt it just like, whoa. So anyway, then I was reading articles about him all the time. I had opened up for him, and it was like, oh my gosh. I stayed, like about as close to this piano there on the side of the stage and watched him play his set, and it was just like, oh my God, this is what they're talking about when there's a magic of somebody who just has some kind of voodoo something going on. And anyway, so one of his quotes was that, and I thought, yeah, you don't have to be, Eddie Van Halen or whoever the fastest guitar on the block was. It was more about something else. And so then I started slowing myself down then. I mean, even though I would have relapses into playing lots of notes and playing, Hendrixy, Johnny Winter, lots of flashy notes. But then when it comes right back down to it, it's something else.
And now that you're using reading glasses, and
yes,
you used the term old man earlier,
yes, I am.
Not that you appear to be one of that sort at all. You've sort of grown into the part, I suppose.
And Ravi Shankar, he just died, and I heard the interviews, and he, the sitar, he was just a master, and really fast playing of the scales up and down. And he said as he got older, he slowed way down compared to what he used to play, but that he just felt like it was deeper and better. And so I just related to that at that point in my life, that I had been in the fastest guitar player in the West contest with everybody around, and then realized, no, it's not about that, because there's always going to be some kid that comes up 5 years later who just blows everybody away, and that it's more about something different than just speed.
And the notion that the more notes you play does not mean that the more music you make.
Right.
Necessarily.
That's not to say that when you see somebody incredible, like I can imagine people watching Paganini or whoever, it is impressive when you see somebody like that, no doubt. Their mastery of the instrument is impressive. And so speed can be something which creates excitement, but it became just not important to me at a certain point. It was like, okay, I'm done with that.
Well, we probably have time for one more song. We've been talking